McCann thanked law enforcement officials for their efforts, but say they will never give up hope of finding Madeleine alive. Qantas has announced the first expansion of flights since the pandemic hit, starting to bring more of its staff back on board. Australia's airlines have been on life support, relying on taxpayer money to keep planes in the air. But that money's about to end and some routes may cease without it. Casey Briggs reports.
With fleets grounded, parking's a scarce resource. This runway has been turned into a makeshift open-air hangar. But while greatly reduced, the work of Sydney Airport continues.
It's business as usual for us. We just like to see a few more aircraft moving.
The route between Sydney and Melbourne is normally the second busiest in the world. Before the pandemic, there were around 160 flights between these two cities every day. Fast forward to April, that dropped to just 12. Sydney Airport, our busiest airport, has gone from almost 440 flights a day to 50. Qantas is now putting more planes back in the air. It's increasing flights between Sydney and Melbourne ninefold by the end of the month. But the new flights are still just 15% of usual levels. On a typical Thursday, there'd be more than 2,500 flights in Australian airspace. The moment travel restrictions were imposed, that activity plunged, and the drop only halted when the federal government stepped in to underwrite flights. That's helped keep a skeleton schedule of almost 550 flights a day in the air. That taxpayer money runs out next week, and both Qantas and Virgin are talking to the government about extending it.
Well, everything's on the table and we're reviewing those things at the moment with the airline sector.
Qantas says some of its routes, particularly those affected by travel restrictions, are still commercially unviable. Flights to popular tourist destinations have all but dried up. There were 199 flights to or from Hamilton Island in April 2019. The same period this year, 0. There was just 5% of the usual number of flights to Lord Howe Island, less than 4% for Port Macquarie, and less than 2% of normal flight traffic to Ballina Byron Bay.
The airlines won't be flying unless they're supported to fly, unless passengers are buying tickets.
But passengers can't buy tickets to flights that don't exist. A catch-22 getting in the way of local economic recovery. Casey Briggs, ABC News.
Victims of bushfires should have access to a single person